In the center of the market square, a young woman was sitting on a bench with her head down. She liked to come here before, mostly for work, but sometimes just to think or to be alone in the middle of a busy square. The thing is, Eva Liss wasn't used to being alone. She could never concentrate in silence and solitude. To find a solution to a problem, she had to think about someone. No matter who, it could be a complete stranger. She didn't even have to talk to him. The main and only rule was not to be alone. The thought that was born in Eva's head bounced off the person she had chosen and returned to her, and only then the woman could critically evaluate it. As if it wasn't her idea at all, but the person from whom it bounced off. It may seem funny, but people who grew up in large families most often do not know how to value solitude. When you are surrounded by close people year after year, you involuntarily dissolve in them. You stop noticing where you end and they begin. And now, finding yourself alone with yourself, such a person begins to painfully dig into themselves to understand which of the pieces of this complex puzzle is he or she. Eva was surrounded by at least 20 people, a small group of tourists with a guide. But none of them had any ideas. However, it was not their fault. Eva simply had no ideas at all. This had never happened before, because before she always had someone who could give her advice. These people were still there, but none of them wanted to talk to Eva anymore. And Eva was to blame for this. A week ago, Eva cheated on her husband at the opening of an art gallery where she worked as a photographer. She was hired by the artist Jan Vrobel himself. They had once studied together at school, but there were other photographers at the opening, representatives of the media. It was they who filmed the famous artist passionately kissing Ewer in a narrow corridor leading to the toilets. The very next morning, these photographs were on the front pages of all Polish newspapers and online news channels. That same morning, the entire country, including Ewer's husband, learned that Jan Vrobel was not gay, as they had all assumed. But Ewer's husband was not at all happy about it. 8 years of marriage down the drain for the artist. She hadn't even liked him, perhaps in her youth, but not now. It was a momentary weakness, a momentary delay and an eternal shame. Eva could have explained everything to her husband. Perhaps he would have even forgiven her if the whole country had not been aware of what had happened. Her husband was the second person in Wrocław and not the least person in Poland. The best way out of this situation for him was a quiet divorce. They had no children. 2 years ago, doctors diagnosed Eva with infertility, and Adam himself never really wanted children. He was worried about Eva's infertility for the company, to support her, although in fact, if she had known that Adam did not want children, she would have suffered a little less. Eva was tormented by a sense of guilt. It seemed to her that by being infertile she was condemning her husband to a dull, childless life, that because of her little feet would never stomp on the parquet floor in their house and the ringing laughter of children would never be heard. Eva wanted to be a mother even more than a wife. Now she would never be either one. Eva's parents doted on her husband. Sometimes it seemed to Eva that the family loved Adam more than her. On weekends, Eva's father and brother would invite Adam fishing. Her mother would go out of her way to cook his favorite dishes for Sunday dinner. When they gathered at the family table, all the attention was devoted to conversations about Adam. Adam this, Adam that, his work, his hobbies, his family, his friends, and only when all the topics were exhausted would it come to his wife, but that did not happen often. However, Eva had never had the chance to play a leading role before Adam appeared. Her older brother was the favorite child in the family. Father proudly said my son, and when it came to Eva, he simply said girl. Eva's father was not a misogynist, although no, he was. It was not that he openly hated all women, rather, he treated them condescendingly, considered them narrow-minded, boring, incapable of holding a conversation. A woman's place is in the kitchen and the bedroom. That's what he used to say. Eva's mother never contradicted him. She was either in the kitchen or in the bedroom, and then raised the children. She dedicated her life to her husband and family, and considered this her personal achievement. Almost all of her friends were divorced, but she was not. Eva's mother did not believe their stories about a happy and free life. Sometimes she even took offense at her friends for such impudent lies. Eva did not interfere in her parents' relationships. No one listened to her anyway. At first she was her brother's shadow, and then she became her husband's shadow. And now she was looking for a way to separate her piece of the puzzle in a way that would preserve herself. Eva lifted her tear-stained face and exposed it to the rays of the spring sun. The tourists had dispersed to take pictures of the gingerbread European houses, the town hall building and the old clock tower. Only a flock of blue pigeons remained next to Eva, busily pacing the cobblestones. As they passed each other, they seemed to bow respectfully, although in reality, of course, they wanted to pick up a breadcrumb before the other. The same was true for most of the people in Eva's life. They seemed to bow, but in reality they only wanted something from her husband. Now that she had almost no husband left, there were no friends, no acquaintances, and even her family had turned their backs on her. Eva was not going to beg forgiveness from her husband and family. She was tired of being their shadow. She was already 35, and she had not yet had time to really get to know herself. Perhaps this not very beautiful story happened to Eva so that she could finally find herself. There was nowhere to retreat. She had no one left in whose shadow she could hide. Eva understood the inevitability of everything that was happening, but she lacked the courage to admit it to herself. That was why she was now sitting and crying bitterly in the middle of the square. She was mourning her old, familiar life, and she was also very scared. It was as if she had been knocked out of the saddle in the middle of a race, and now the inevitable changes, like horses driven by their riders, were rushing straight at her. The divorce had deprived Eva of everything: money, an apartment, family, friends. All she had left was an old red Peugeot and a couple of suitcases of things. The Peugeot was now gathering dust in the courtyard of the old 5-story apartment building where Eva had rented an apartment, and the suitcases had migrated to a cramped dressing room. Eva had never unpacked one of them. She was in no mood. After the scandal in the newspapers, Eva tried not to leave the house unnecessarily. There were almost no orders for filming. Only occasionally did she show up at her studio to film previously booked clients. She had no new clients after the divorce. Few people would want to find themselves in the epicenter of a broken life. Due to the lack of work, Eva barely had enough money to pay for her rented apartment, and she had completely forgotten the taste of restaurant food. Now she had to cook for herself, and she was a terrible cook. Sometimes Eva was invited to dinner by her elderly neighbor Amelia. The lonely old lady was bored, and here was some kind of company. Previously, Eva's apartment was rented by students, and the neighbor had a hard time with them. Drinking, music, garbage, broken light bulbs. When Eva moved in, the floor became clean and light again. This was enough for Amelia to consider Eva a pleasant person and take her under her wing. Almost no light penetrated from under the tightly drawn curtains. Eva lay with both legs thrown over the back of the sofa and looked at the unevenly painted ceiling. The stains on the ceiling irritated her no less than the old sand-colored sofa and the running of the second hand of the wall clock. Eva had already tried to take the battery out of it several times, but each time there were more important things to do. The ceiling itself does not look at itself. It is unknown how long this torture would have continued if there had not been a knock on the door. Eva got up from the sofa with a tired sigh, went to the door and looked through the peephole. Amelia was standing on the landing in a green dressing gown and camel wool slippers. On her head there was a single curler. This is how she fixed her grey bangs, which always tried to slide to the side. Wrinkles gathered around her translucent blue eyes, which became even more pronounced when Amelia smiled, like now. Eva took the chain off the lock and opened the door. "Hello, Amelia. What brings you here?" Eva smiled affably. "What do you mean, what brings you here? It's already 8 o'clock in the evening. It would be nice to have dinner." Amelia was in no hurry to go inside. "I haven't cooked anything today," Eva admitted. Who would doubt it? The old woman spread her hands. "I fried a chicken. Let's go. I'll treat you. Chicken sounds great. Now, I'll just put on my shoes." Eva slid her feet into her slippers and caught up with Amelia already at her door. "Come in, make yourself at home." Amelia gestured towards the kitchen. The small kitchen was filled with the smell of fried chicken, rosemary, and boiled potatoes. The light curtains were tied with laces. The round table was covered with a tablecloth and set for two. Of course, Amelia knew that Eva would agree, and if she refused, she would still persuade her. The women dined silently and thought about each other, each about her own. "Amelia, forgive me. I have long wanted to ask." Eva began. "Ask. Do not be shy." The old woman smiled weakly. "You said that you have children. Why do not they visit you?" "Forgive me if it is none of my business," Eva remembered. "It's okay," Amelia reassured her. "My eldest son died in a car accident. It was a long time ago. The youngest got married and moved to Sweden. They come once a year for my birthday. Wouldn't you like to move in with him?" Eva asked. "No, my home is here. They invited me to come over several times, but I told them that I would only move out of this apartment feet first." Amelia laughed in a dry, wrinkled voice. "And you? What about me? Eva was surprised. Are you planning on living here for a long time? Amelia clarified. Don't think that. I really like you as a neighbor, but you're still young and beautiful. Why bury yourself in this closet? You hardly ever come out into the world, so it won't take long for you to wither away. Where should I go? You know everything. Eva slumped her shoulders. Well, at least sit on the internet. Meet someone. Chat. I do it every now and then, too. Amelia winked slyly. What is that too? Eva became interested. That's it. I recently met my grandfather, an Italian. For me it's just for fun. And you might even get married again. I don't know. Maybe I'll try. Eva didn't want to offend the old woman, but she didn't want to meet anyone either. From then on, at every new meeting, Amelia asked if Eva had managed to meet anyone, and she always shook her head. One day, Eva got so bored with endless sitting within four walls that she finally took Amelia's advice and registered on a dating site. The hardest thing was choosing photos for the profile. Eva was a classic shoemaker without shoes or a photographer without photos. There was nothing to do. Eva had to go to the studio. She pulled a scarf over her head and dark glasses so that she would not be recognized on the street. She did not want to meet acquaintances. Even less did she want to talk to them and answer the question, "How are you?" knowing that no one was really interested in her affairs. In 5 minutes, Eva quickly walked to the studio. She specially rented an apartment closer to work. Eva turned on the light in the dressing room, did her hair and applied light makeup. Cold tin eyes emphasized Eva's aristocratic pallor. Her light, wheat-colored hair fell in smooth waves on her rounded shoulders. Just a few strokes, and she was ready for shooting. Eva mounted the camera on a tripod, turned on the timer and took a place on a chair in front of the spotlight. She changed poses, lighting and camera angles. In an hour, she had about 100 photos, of which about 95 were not destined to see the light of day. Returning home, Eva inserted the memory card into her laptop and finished filling out her profile. She hesitated for a long time to send the profile, but a second after sending it, she received the first response. Thus began a whole series of meaningless acquaintances. Nevertheless, this added a little color to Eva's dull seclusion. Now they always had something to talk about and laugh about together with Amelia. Eva never thought of falling in love. At first she was looking for a way to distract herself, then to have fun, and when she got carried away and realized that men still liked her, she decided to arrange her personal life. It is not necessary to love a man. It is enough that he loves. When one loves, and the other gratefully accepts this love, a completely harmonious union results. Different men wrote to her, from young to old, from mama's boys to respectable widowers. Eva did not want to get involved with young men, too emotional and no financial stability. She was tired of living from zloty to zloty. It is generally impossible to have an affair with widowers. They are looking for a replacement wife. Besides, they have experienced loss and need support. Healing other people's traumas is hard work. There is nothing romantic about it. Eva was embarrassed that these men would certainly compare her with their deceased wives, and in this comparison she would always end up the loser. It's hard to compete with the dead, because only the best is remembered. Eva herself didn't notice how she began to give preference to one of her interlocutors from the Mama's boys category. The guy's name was Dennis. He was already 32 years old, and he still lived with his mother, but unlike other sons with whom Eva had to deal, Dennis lived with his mother to take care of her, and not vice versa. Eva was captivated by this. This guy seemed reliable to her. There was always something to talk about with him. He was not overly intrusive. Like other men, he did not flirt recklessly, as if Eva was the last woman on earth and he needed to get her at all costs. In general, peacock mating dances were not characteristic of Dennis. He, like Eva, was looking for communication and support. Dennis admired Eva's talent, saying that her work should be exhibited in a gallery. She always waved him off, but continued to show them the photos. She was flattered by his praise, and he, without realizing it, gave Eva confidence. "You know, I talked to a gallery owner I know. He wouldn't mind exhibiting your work in his gallery. Dennis wrote one day. "Oh my God, are you crazy? How do you even imagine that?" Eva almost choked with surprise and joy. "You could send me your work. I'll print it out and give it to the gallery. But it would be better if you flew in and presented your work yourself. That way you'll have a chance to meet new people and make connections," Dan suggested. "I need to think about it." "It's so unexpected." Eva's soul rejoiced. No one had ever done this for her before. Even her husband, with his connections and influence, had never organized an exhibition for her. He had little interest in her work, did not consider this hobby something serious. "Okay, tell me when you're ready." "I'll arrange everything." Dennis added a winking smiley. Eva had nothing to lose. 2 weeks later, she accepted Dennis's invitation, handed the keys to her rented apartment to Amelia so that she could water the ficus, took that same unpacked suitcase and boarded a plane to Portland with a transfer at Amsterdam Airport. Just 24 hours later, Eva stepped off the plane onto American soil. It was her first time in the US, and her palms were tingling slightly with excitement. Eva could feel with her skin that her life was changing for the better. She had made a wonderful friend who could potentially become a wonderful partner for a new life. New career opportunities had opened up for her. And all this thanks to Dennis. Eva was very nervous before meeting him. She was worried that he would be disappointed when he saw her for real, not in the photo. While she was waiting for her suitcase at the baggage carousel, she kept nervously adjusting her loose hair. Dennis greeted Eva with a wide smile, like an old acquaintance. He immediately took the suitcase from her hands and offered her elbow. Eva responded to this friendly gesture. The road had tired her out quite a bit. Dennis put the suitcase in the trunk of his car, opened the door for Eva, and only then took his seat. Nancy was already waiting for them at home. She was sitting in a chair on the porch and reading a book. The weather was still unpredictable as in spring, but the last couple of days had been unusually warm and sunny for April. "Mom, this is my friend Eva. I told you about her. This is Nancy, my mom." Dennis introduced the women. "Nice to meet you." Nancy spread her arms out to the sides, inviting Eva into a hug. "Pleased to meet you." Eva felt awkward, but she responded to this friendly gesture. "Eva, are you hungry? I made my signature pie for your arrival." Hospitality was in the Flynn's blood. "That's very kind of you." "I won't refuse." Eva smiled sincerely. She couldn't remember the last time someone cooked especially for her, not counting Amelia. At dinner, Eva told them how the trip had gone and what her plans were for the next few days. She planned to stay with Dennis for 3 weeks. She had to spend the first week preparing for the exhibition, and another 2 weeks working in the gallery. Dennis found an excellent printing house that agreed to print all the material for a pittance in exchange for mentioning the printing house on the flyers. Eva didn't have much money, so she happily agreed to this condition. The only thing left to do was to take the photographs and place them in the gallery by theme: people, animals, landscapes, and architecture. The theme of the exhibition was industrialization and ecology. Eva wanted to draw attention not only to her works, but also to the environmental situation in the world. She photographed wild animals against the backdrop of smoking factory chimneys, stray dogs in the alleys of her hometown, people working in the fields and factories. Each photo was accompanied by a caption and told about one of the industries and its impact on the environment. Eva put her heart and soul into this project and really hoped that they would succeed.